Hi and welcome back to another Canadian Odyssey video. Today we're zooming in on New Brunswick. New Brunswick, and specifically the town or city of St. John, where we find the reversing falls. Now, because St. John sits on the Bay of Fundy, Bay of Fundy, of course, we know has the highest tide in the world. The drop can be as much as a 5-story building, which is obviously quite extreme. So the story here with the reversing falls is the St. John River comes down and pours basically through a gap in this, what was originally a ridge, and obviously over a gazillion years it's been worn down. Now, back during the Ice Age, this water level would have been much lower and the river would have freely flowed and felt like a regular waterfall basically. But what happens now with these extreme tides in the Bay of Fundy, the water level actually comes up and challenges the St. John River. And what we have is basically this whole river flowing out through this very small gap. But as the tide rises, and we get to the mid-tide or the slack tide between the in and the outgoing, the waterfall, as it's known, will actually reverse and pour in to the St. John's River. Now, this basically happens every day, twice a day, except that there's been a great amount of snow melt coming down. And that's probably the only time that the St. John River actually matches the challenge of the water coming into the Bay of Fundy. Now you can see here the whirlpools and everything, they're very intense. In fact, in some of those whirlpools the water level goes quite deep. There's quite a hole there if you watch out for it. I certainly would not want to be falling into that water. I don't think that would end very well at all. It's obviously very deep here where the water flows into, as it's been carved out through the millennia. But as we're watching here, you can see that the tide's starting to slacken and the flow is quite reduced compared to the beginning of the video. Here we can see some of the old shacks that are on the river, but most of the time they're nowhere near the river because it falls so low. So even though it's running out still, the level is coming up. You'll notice that rock at the end of that little outcrop is becoming more and more covered over compared to the beginning of the video. Now, basically between this outrush and the inrush, there is a 20-minute period of slack tide, and that is really the only time that this piece of water is navigable for boats. So you can see this guy coming down here, he's still riding the outgoing current, so obviously taking the chance of getting through here within that small time frame. He's probably getting knocked about there a bit. You can probably feel that quite significantly in the boat itself. As he's skimming along those little whirlpools, well not very little, but enough to get a look at. And obviously he'll be getting chucked about a bit and be working the wheel quite intensely. Actually circumnavigated that whirlpool quite well to get a slingshot effect. So, as I said, this is the only time it's a navigable piece of water. As you can see, it's slackening now. But with the outflow, it is quite sort of bizarre to see the water actually still coming up. So it looks like the water's going out, but it actually is rising because that rock is slowly disappearing at that point there. And we can see this some commercial traffic coming up, which is basically going to take advantage of that 20-minute slack water before the water starts rushing in the other way. Now I believe these guys are actually taking this dredge or whatever it is into the St. John River, and they want to be pretty smart about it, which is why they're coming in while the water is still coming out, so bucking the current there, because those tugs actually need to come back out to be used for other purposes. Otherwise they would be stuck there for a good 6 hours or so before they could sort of re-navigate this piece of water. So this bend in the river here, and it goes up towards the city of St. John and bends again out into the Bay of Fundy. So it's a bit of an S-curve as it's coming through here. But you can see the current is significantly less than it was when we first got to this point. and he's just slowly making his way in, but obviously having to work pretty hard. There's still a significant current for him, but certainly he needs to get in there and get out again before it becomes completely a complete torrent of water. So just pulling it through there. We got another tug on the back just to keep it all lined up, so in case it gets thrown one way or the other by the tide, things will happen very quickly in this kind of a current. And if they were to go wrong, which they undoubtedly will if you're not prepared. So just going under the bridge now. And yeah, it's having to work quite hard still in the current. You can see there's, if you can't, well you will see it in a moment, but on that rock basically just behind the scoop of the shovel, it's getting smaller, but see birds are starting to gather there because they know when that tide starts reversing, there's going to be a lot of fish coming in, and often apparently seals and sea lions or whatever follow them in as well, so it becomes quite a feeding ground, and the birds obviously are well aware of that and they're waiting for that to happen, so they're all just sitting there roosting on that ever shrinking rock as the reversal of the water is about to happen. Okay, so he's now got that under the bridge and he'll break into the actual St. John River side and obviously do whatever they've got to do. But you can see it's slackening quite dramatically now. Okay, it looks. You can see the birds now on the rock, they're all sitting there waving, there's a few floating around in the water. Just waiting for that feed time to come in. So let's see, the water is starting to reverse course now. Okay, so there's a bit of a wave on the right hand side now, which is basically the current pushing back, and little whirlpools are starting to generate on the incoming tide. Now the tide's actually been coming in for quite some time, but it reaches a tipping point basically when it is level with the water coming out of the St. John River. So, which is why basically the water level is going up at quite a lot of the time when the falls are still pouring out, which is quite bizarre. So here are the guys now, they've made the delivery of their cargo and basically sneaking out before that tide starts to rush. You can see they have to fight the tide both ways, just to fit within that 20-minute window. So they've obviously moored that barge somewhere up the river there and then got the heck out of Dodge. And we can see now it's starting to pour in quite significantly now. As that water level is now surpassed out of the St. John River.